Hello, and welcome to another episode of Uconomy. I'm Thomas Fox.
And I'm Nunzio Bruno.
And we join you today to talk about some very interesting things. Probably the biggest interesting thing we'll talk about is using credit responsibly.
Yes, 'tis the season. Well, after it's the season.
Oh, it's after the season.
Yeah, right.
But I'd like to actually share a story really quick about using credit responsibly, if I may. So I'm flying back from Arizona, and it's the end of the flight. And all of a sudden, the lady comes on and she goes, "Hey, we're doing a special deal today. If you sign up for our credit card right now, we're going to give you an extra 30,000 miles." Half the plane, immediately, hand shot up. Everybody got the credit card app. They started filling it out. The one thing I noticed, not one person read the terms and conditions.
Right, 45%
They really just started. Well, the interest rate started off at 18, but it was a penalty interest rate of 30.49%.
Nice.
There was an annual rate of $89. There was this. I mean, you had to let them let them borrow your mother's washing machine on Thursdays. I mean, it was crazy. All the stuff they had in this contract that nobody read, and that's a gist. I mean, especially in my field, I deal with people that are after the fact. The average people that give us a call or a Cambridge Credit, they got $20,000, $30,000 in credit card debt.
Right.
But they don't understand how they got there. And probably one of the easiest things you can do to save yourself from getting in this huge amount of debt is understand the terms and conditions for each card.
Right, and don't sign up for a card just because they give you a free duffel bag at a Red Sox game.
Yeah, I mean, it's simple to really want, it's like, wow, I'm getting something for free, but in a sense you're not. And there's a lot of things that affect your credit, and your use of credit is going to really affect the rest of your life. And one of the biggest things it affects is your ability to build wealth. And to be honest right now, we don't know where retirement's going to take us. We don't know how much, how longer we're going to have to work into our golden years. And every opportunity that we give our money to the bank for the privilege of borrowing their money, we take away our ability to live the lives that we want.
Right.
And it seems like we're getting what we want right now because I can charge it and I can go get it. But then the bill comes. And then it's like, what did I just do?
Right.
And so one of the things, when we're talking about using credit responsibly, largest message is understand the terms for each card. Look through it. And I'll be honest with you, there's 60,000 lenders offering credit cards in our country. If you don't like the one credit card application that's in front of you, shop around, get another one. It really is that simple. And you had some nice sites that we talked about that they can do some research on.
Right. Credit Karma is a big one. Bankrate again. Even Cambridge Credit, they have a great website that has a ton of good language and educational materials to helping you understand or decipher your way through those terms and conditions for credit cards.
No, indeed, but when you go to these websites like Credit Karma, even creditcards.com, bankrate.com, you're able to search for cards on different for different purposes. Some people like the rebate cards, or you get certain things like that. Hey, if you can pay off your balance at the end of the month and you want to use the bank to get some rebates and things like that, rewards, fine. But when you're not getting something, it's like I want to hang a picture, but all I really got is a screwdriver. You know what I mean? It's just trying to hammer that thing in the wall. You're probably going to put a hole in the wall, and you could put a hole in your finances by not getting the right credit card.
And a lot of those things, a lot of those terms that actually catch you up are, those fees associated with maintenance or managing or just being a part of their credit program that people often don't think about, and they believe that they're carrying a zero balance, but then end up, a month or two into default because they missed a fee schedule.
Yeah, and you have to keep on top of what's going on. And one of the biggest things you look for when you're trying to pick a card is go for a card that's going to help you out. If you travel a lot, you might like the miles card, or I'm a big Amazon shopper and I have an Amazon card because anytime I use it on Amazon, I get points. And I could use those points for additional purposes or purchases, or I can actually use those points to pay down my balance, which is great. I mean, it all depends on what you're using the card for.
And even those cashback rewards cards, you have to be careful with those because they put caps on those. It's either a percentage of your spending or a certain dollar amount. So don't just enroll into the first card that you have the opportunity to get into that offers cash back, because it might not, again, be the best one for you.
Yeah, and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau has been doing a lot of work with lenders to really try to make the credit card applications very simple to understand now. Years past, it was like the Magna Carta. It just read so clunky.
Yep.
I mean, I was out at Harvard once. I was listening to Professor Warren out there. We went to go see Maxed Out, which is a great documentary on the lending abuses that go on in our country. And She was talking about a credit card application she received. She goes, you know what? I write laws for the United States, and I can't understand this credit card application. And that's how crazy it is. It's changed, and it's a lot easier to understand, but if you don't understand something, call a credit card company, ask questions. Call a nonprofit credit counseling agency, ask questions. And if people can't answer your question, especially the credit card company, then spend your money elsewhere.
Yeah, pick another one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah,
Jinx?
Yeah,
No?
you owe me a Pepsi
Coke?
Blue Ribbon or whatever.
Wow.
I don't. Do they make those anymore?
Yeah, for a nickel.
Well, talking about nickels, probably the biggest thing you can do when you're using your credit cards is charge only what you can afford to pay each month. Make yourself a little credit card budget, and that's what I use. Like I know I want to use my mileage, right, or my rebate card.
Yep.
So I say, all right, I know I'm going to shop for this, and this every month on the card, and I set up a budget for it, and I track my spending as I go accord. And at the end of the month, when the bill comes in, I pay it off in full. But it's easy to get away from it because I went to the mall the other day and they had all these cool games on sale, and I was, like,
Right.
"Ah!"
And here you are having something that's burning a hole in your pocket, just screaming to be used.
Yeah, and I just didn't because I was already over my credit card budget.
Right.
And it's the end of the month, and so on. But you have to really be mindful of what you can afford each month and not to go over that because it'll really get you in trouble.
One thing to make sure that you keep in mind are those interest payments that accrue. So when you're crafting, whether it's a credit card budget or just a general financial budget for your spending in general, make sure you take into consideration those interest payments or those interest figures that accrue each month if you're not paying it off from month to month, because that can really put a damper on any kind of savings plan that you have because you'll have a false positive essentially.
Well, and that comes into, when you're just making the minimum only payments, the minimum monthly payments, a lot of people get trapped in that, but I'll tell you right now, this is what happens. Let's just, for arguments of example, let's say you had a $2,000 balance and you were paying the minimum payment, which would be roughly in the neighborhood of $41. Out of that $41, $11 goes towards paying down your principal, the money that you borrowed. The $30 goes towards interest or to the privilege of borrowing the bank's money. That money goes to the bank. And this is why you stay in credit card debt for such a long time, because if you just make those minimum payments on that particular debt there, that $2,000 debt, you're paying that for at least 19 years. And you're going to pay back close to, I think it was $5,800 total. So you're paying $3,800 to borrow $2,000 just because you're making the minimum monthly payment. So again, it's very important to, if you can't pay your full monthly obligation, then at least pay more than minimum payment, $5, $10, $20, $30, $40, whatever you can do more, but you don't want to get mired in that because, let's be honest, the average interest rate is 14%. I can't get an investment vehicle that's 14%.
And they make it easier now, as you're approaching your credit limits with the credit actually being more available these days, people are encouraged to spend, so those credit companies would be more than willing to increase those rates for you to keep you under their thumb a little longer.
Yeah, and there's even more companies out there are kind of using the credit limit as almost a guideline. They're now letting people go beyond it without giving penalties because they don't want to, that $45 charge that they used to get for getting over the limit. They got in a little trouble with that. So now they're saying, hey, well, why not just let the change go off? And they're not saying you can go willy-nilly, but they're letting you go. If you have a $3,000 limit, some companies let you go to $4,000 or $5,000 before they cut you off. And now they're making all that extra money in interest payments. So it can definitely be get you in trouble.
So even along those lines, you want to make sure that you're not using or not relying on credit to make your everyday purchases. That's the easiest way to lock yourself up for those extended periods of time because that becomes your primary spending vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, some people like to use credit cards just because it's a simple fact that you don't want to carry around cash, and that's fine. If you're going to go home and if I were to do that, if I travel for a day, I bring my credit card with me, and whatever purchases I make that day, I immediately make a payment when I get home that night.
Right.
If I don't, that's the way I try to handle it, just because it's just easier that way.
Right. What it also does when you have a plan like this in place is it prevents you from almost living beyond your means. People get into a lot of trouble when they end up at a mall and they have a fresh credit card in their pocket, and now everything becomes affordable.
Oh, indeed. I mean, when I had my first credit card, it was. I don't know if anybody here saw New Jack City, but I was pooky. I was like, this is crazy. They're going to give me $2,000 to go shopping, and that was great. And then I got the bill.
Right.
30 months later, I'm like, well, wait, they want me to pay this back? I didn't know that. They
It's
should
not
have said
free
that.
money?
Yeah, they should have said that.
No.
But that's comes to the challenge. You get the credit card, so there's some good ways to manage it, but there's other things you have to take into consideration too when you're using your credit card. And people call me sometimes and they go, all right, listen, I got all these credit cards, but I want to close some of them. How's a good way to go about closing them? It sounds like an awkward question, but you really have to be mindful of the way that you use your credit cards and how you strategize with that.
Right, you don't want to close anything that has an open balance, right? Everything that you do with your credit cards is going to have an impact on your financial health, essentially. Credit scores, what your future, what you might be available for. So you want to make sure that you're doing the best you can to make those payments, but you don't want to close anything until it has a zero balance. And you want to be cognizant of the time frame, right? Your oldest credit cards you might want to also kind of keep around because they're the largest evidence of your credit history or your credit worthiness to lenders.
Your credit score is basically your track record. And now your track record over 20 years is far more powerful than your track record over 20 months.
Right.
So if you have those credit cards that you've been holding on for a while and maybe you're not using it, you still may want to consider that. Another thing you really have to look at with your credit cards is how much of your credit you're actually using.
Right.
What I mean by that is a lot of folks, one of the biggest portions of your credit score is the amounts owed, and that's 30% of your score. That's a big option of your credit score because they want to know that if I give you more money, if you lend you more money, you're going to be able to pay it off. Ideally, what they really look for, especially Fair Isaac & Company, FICO, they designed a credit scoring model. They'd like to see, and creditors would like to see, your credit utilization under 30%. What I mean by that is, if you have $10,000, if you got 5 cards, and each of them, let's say, has a $2,000 spending limit, it's $10,000. You should have no more than $3,000 in charges on those cards.
Right.
And so they want you to stay underneath that 30% utilization ratio. When you get higher than that is when your credit score really starts to get dinged. So again, have the cards, but don't put too much on them. Try to avoid that threshold by all means.
Right. You want to make sure that you're keeping pace with your terms as well. You don't want to close the cards that have the best terms, regardless of their history. In that same vein, you also want to make sure that you're in communication with your credit companies. If you're under that 30%, or even if you're not, if you're trying to better your situation, and you have some credit history with an institution, give them a call, see if you can negotiate terms to keep you, especially if you're a good credit risk. Companies might be willing to waive those annual fees or lower interest rates, or even extend your credit limits just to keep you there because you being a positive credit risk is worth more than what they're even lending to you or providing to you to be lent.
Yeah, I mean, it's been challenging over the last couple of years. We've heard some, especially at my organization, we've heard some back and forth where it almost seemed like the credit card companies didn't care, or that was how people perceived it. But there was such an imbalance in the economy over the last couple of years where they had legislation, the Credit Card Act, that really threw them off. They didn't know how much more expensive it was going to be to do business. So the credit card companies pulled back. There was a time, I want to say at least a 18-month period, where I did not receive one pre-approved application whatsoever. And now it's commonplace. Like I'll open it up and it's just like it was 2008 again. They're falling out of my mailbox.
Especially after Christmas, this holiday spending.
Yeah, I mean, people are still looking at what this really means for the economy and how much of an impact credit's going to have going forward. But we don't know if Christmas shopping was an anomaly yet. We know it was very expensive this year, and it did great for retailers. But I think the retailers are hoping that this is going to continue. From my side of the credit house, I hope that it doesn't. For the economy, I hope that it does, but I hope it does responsibly.
And lastly, we want to make sure that do the best you can to make those payments on time, because that does have an effect on your credit health essentially. And
that's
good
probably
practice as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably the most important thing you can do with your credit is making your payments on time and in the required amount. At the very least, you're meeting your obligation, and that's what lenders want to see. They want to see that, hey, you know what? I lent this person money, they gave it back, and they're a good candidate.
Right on.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end of this episode. All about your credit health.
That's right. And if you want more information, I mean, we have Financially Digital, which is a blog run by Nunzio. You also have
Vote for Valley Advocate Best.
Also visit us on Facebook, Uconomy, and The Uconomy Show. Is it Uconomy Show or The Uconomy Show on Twitter?
At Uconomy Show. Right. That's what it is.
Our producer's going to be very happy that we mixed up the name of our Twitter.
You're welcome, Al.
All right. Thanks for watching.